The space around the Zephyr sector had been quiet for over 800 years. Stars twinkled peacefully in the black void, and the few trading ships that passed through followed the same safe routes their ancestors had used for generations. The Valdorian Empire controlled this part of the galaxy with an iron fist, and nobody dared to cause trouble. Admiral Krextar stood on the bridge of his command ship, watching the sensor displays with bored eyes. His purple skin gleamed under the blue lights, and his forearms moved slowly as he checked the daily reports. The Valdorians were tall, powerful beings who had conquered dozens of worlds. They believed they were the strongest race in the galaxy, and for 8 centuries nobody had proven them wrong. "Admiral," called out his communications officer, her voice shaking slightly. "We are getting strange readings from the outer sensors." Krextar turned his massive head toward her. "What kind of readings?" "Something is coming toward our sector. It is moving very fast, faster than anything we have seen before." The Admiral walked over to the main display screen. The sensors showed a small dot moving through space at incredible speed. Whatever it was heading straight for their territory. "How fast is it moving?" he asked. "The computers say it is impossible, sir. Nothing can move that fast without tearing itself apart." Krextar felt a chill run down his spine. In all his years of service, he had never seen anything like this. "Send out scout ships. I want to know what that thing is." Far away, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Defiance, watching the stars blur past the viewing windows. The human warship was beautiful and deadly, with sharp angles and smooth metal surfaces that reflected the light of distant suns. It was humanity's first deep space exploration vessel, built with the best technology Earth could offer. "Captain," said Lisa Carter, the communications officer, "we are approaching the edge of the system. The jump drive worked perfectly." Jake smiled. He was a tall man with short brown hair and kind eyes. At 35 years old, he was young for a starship captain, but he had earned his position through hard work and smart thinking. "Good work, Lisa. How does everything else look?" Ben Rodriguez, the chief engineer, checked his displays. "All systems are running smooth, Captain. The fusion engines are at full power, and the shields are holding steady. This ship is ready for anything." Jake nodded. The USS Defiance was more than just a ship to him. It represented humanity's first real step into the galaxy. For years, humans had only explored their own solar system. Now they were finally ready to see what else was out there. "Any signs of other ships?" Jake asked. Chris Baker, the navigation officer, shook his head. "Nothing on sensors yet, Captain, but we are still pretty far out." "Keep watching," Jake said. "We do not know what we might find out here." Marcus Lane, the security chief, was a big man with strong arms and a serious face. He had fought in Earth's last war and knew how dangerous first contact could be. "Captain, should we prepare the weapon systems?" Jake thought for a moment. "Keep them ready, but do not charge them. We are here to explore and make friends, not to fight." Dr. Amy Foster, the cultural liaison, looked up from her computer. She was a smart woman who spoke 12 different Earth languages and had studied alien cultures for years. "Captain, I have been reading about the different species in this part of the galaxy. Most of them seem to be part of something called the Valdorian Empire." "What can you tell me about them?" Jake asked. "They are very old and very powerful. They have controlled this region for a long time. The reports say they do not like change or new things." Jake frowned. "That could be a problem." "Contact," Chris Baker suddenly called out. "I am picking up several ships heading our way. They are moving fast." On the main screen, small dots appeared and grew larger. Soon they could see the alien ships clearly. They were strange-looking, with curved hulls and bright lights. There were 20 of them, and they were surrounding the USS Defiance. "This is it," Jake said quietly. "First contact." Admiral Krextar received the scout reports with growing alarm. The unknown ship was like nothing in their databases. It was smaller than a Valdorian battle cruiser, but carried energy readings that made no sense. The metal it was made from was unknown, and its engines produced power levels that should have been impossible. "What do you think it is?" asked Commander Velthara, his second in command. "I do not know," Krextar admitted. but I do not like it. Send the response fleet. Surround that ship and find out what it wants. Yes, Admiral. Within minutes, 20 Valdorian warships were racing toward the human vessel. Each ship carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon, and their crews were trained warriors who had never lost a battle. On the USS Defiance, the crew watched as the alien ships took positions around them. The ships were beautiful in their own way, but they also looked very dangerous. Captain, Lisa Carter said, I am trying to open communications, but the universal translator is having problems. Their language is very different from anything in our database. Dr. Amy Foster was working frantically at her station. I think I can figure out some basic words. Give me a few more minutes. We may not have a few more minutes, Marcus Lane said, watching the alien ships on his tactical display. Those ships are armed and ready for battle. Jake took a deep breath. This was the moment that would decide humanity's future in the galaxy. Try to send them a peaceful message. Let them know, we come in peace and just want to talk. Lisa worked at her controls, sending out a simple message in several different formats. The signal went out to the alien ships, carrying humanity's first words to the galaxy. Admiral Krexitar received the transmission and had his computers analyze it. The message was confusing and unclear, but it seemed to be some kind of greeting. The unknown beings were trying to communicate. What should we do, Admiral? Velthara asked. Krexitar stared at the human ship on his screen. It looked powerful and dangerous, but the message seemed peaceful. Still, in 800 years, nobody had ever entered Valdorian space without permission. Demand that they identify themselves, he ordered. And if they refuse, prepare to destroy them. The message went out to the USS Defiance, and Jake Morrison realized that humanity's first contact with alien life was not going as planned. The alien message came through the USS Defiance's communication system like a thunderclap. Even with the universal translator working overtime, the meaning was clear and threatening. The Valdorian Empire demanded to know who the humans were and what they wanted in their territory. Captain Jake Morrison stood calmly on the bridge, but inside he felt his heart racing. This was not how he had imagined first contact would go. He had hoped for curiosity and friendship, not demands and threats. Lisa, can you send them a clear response? He asked. Lisa Carter worked at her station, sweat beading on her forehead. I think so, Captain. The translator is getting better at understanding their language. Good. Tell them we are explorers from Earth. We come in peace and wish to learn about their culture. The message went out across space to Admiral Krexitar's fleet. On the Valdorian command ship, the translation computers worked to decode the human words. When the message appeared on the main screen, many of the alien officers laughed. Explorers? Commander Velthara said with amusement. That ship carries enough weapons to level a city. Admiral Krexitar was not laughing. He had been studying the energy readings from the human vessel, and what he saw worried him. Their technology is very advanced, more advanced than ours in some ways. How is that possible? Velthara asked. We have ruled this galaxy for 800 years. No species has ever matched our science. I do not know, Krexitar admitted. But look at their power readings. That small ship produces more energy than 3 of our battle cruisers. On the USS Defiance, Dr. Amy Foster was trying to make sense of the alien response. The Valdorians seemed confused by humanity's peaceful intentions. They kept asking about Earth's military strength and how many ships humans had. Captain, she said, I think they see us as a threat. They are asking questions about our military capabilities. Tell them we only have a few ships, Jake replied. We are new to space travel and just want to explore. Amy sent the message, but she could see from the alien responses that they did not believe her. The Valdorians thought the humans were lying about their strength. Marcus Lane was watching his tactical displays with growing concern. Captain, those alien ships are moving into attack positions. Their weapons are charging. Jake felt a cold, knot form in his stomach. Are you sure? Yes, sir. Energy spikes across their entire fleet. They are getting ready to fight. Dr. Amy Foster tried again to communicate with the aliens. She sent detailed information about human culture, showing Then pictures of Earth cities, human families, and peaceful activities. She wanted the Valdorians to understand that humans were not warriors looking for conquest. But when the aliens analyzed the human data, they became even more worried. The pictures showed a planet full of billions of people, with technology that seemed to advance very quickly. In just a few hundred years, humans had gone from simple farming to space travel. To the Valdorians, who moved slowly and carefully, this rapid progress looked dangerous. "Admiral," the Valdorian science officer reported, "these humans developed technology faster than any species we have seen. In their short history, they have had many wars and have created terrible weapons." Krextar studied the human data with growing alarm. These beings seemed to fight constantly among themselves, yet they had somehow learned to work together long enough to build starships. "What else can you tell me about them?" "They are very adaptable, sir. They can live in many different environments. They heal quickly from injuries and seem to have high pain tolerance. In many ways, they are perfect warriors." This news spread quickly through the Valdorian fleet. The idea of a warrior race with advanced technology scared many of the alien crews. Some of them had heard stories of the old days, when the Valdorians had to fight hard to build their empire. They did not want to face another species like that. Back on the USS Defiance, Chris Baker noticed something strange on his navigation screens. "Captain, I am picking up communications between the alien ships. It looks like they are calling for backup." "How much backup?" Jake asked. "A lot, sir. Maybe hundreds of ships." Karen Wells, the tactical officer, looked up from her weapons console. She was a tough woman who had trained for years to protect human ships. "Captain, I recommend we get ready to defend ourselves. Those aliens are not acting friendly." Jake nodded slowly. He had hoped to avoid conflict, but it seemed like the Valdorians had already made up their minds about humanity. "Charge the defensive systems, but keep the weapons powered down. I do not want to give them any more reasons to attack us." Dr. Paul Stevens, the medical officer, was monitoring the crew's stress levels from his station. "Captain, the crew is handling this well, but everyone is nervous. This is not what we trained for." "I know, Paul," Jake said, "but we need to stay calm and think clearly." Meanwhile, Admiral Krextar was receiving reports from across the Valdorian Empire. News of the human ship had spread quickly, and many planetary governors were demanding action. They wanted the alien threat destroyed before it could bring more ships. "Admiral," Velthara said, "we have orders from the High Command. They want the human ship captured or destroyed." Krextar looked at the USS Defiance on his main screen. The human ship looked peaceful enough, but he could not ignore the orders from his superiors. "Send them one final warning. Tell them to surrender or we will open fire." The message reached the USS Defiance within seconds. When Dr. Amy Foster translated it, the bridge became very quiet. "They want us to surrender, Captain," she said softly. Jake looked around at his crew. These were good people who had signed up to explore the galaxy, not to fight wars. But they were also trained professionals who knew their duty. "What are our options?" he asked. Ben Rodriguez checked his engineering displays. "The jump drive needs another hour to recharge, Captain. We cannot run yet." Marcus Lane studied the alien formation. 20 ships, sir. They have us surrounded, but our shields and weapons are better than theirs. I do not want to fight if we can avoid it," Jake said. "Captain," Lisa Carter interrupted, "I am getting communications from some of the other alien species in this area. They are not part of the Valdorian fleet." "What are they saying?" "They are warning us about the Valdorians. They say the Empire is not as peaceful as it claims to be." This new information made Jake think hard about the situation. Maybe the Valdorians were not the good guys they pretended to be. Maybe there were other species in this part of the galaxy who needed help. "Admiral Krextar is demanding an answer," Amy Foster reported. "We have to respond soon." Jake Morrison looked out at the stars and made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. "Tell them we cannot surrender. We have done nothing wrong and will defend ourselves if necessary." The message went out to the Valdorian fleet, and Admiral Krextar realized that the humans were not going to give up without a fight. Dr. Paul Stevens had been watching the tense situation develop from his medical station, and he had an idea. As the ship's doctor, he knew that sometimes the best way to make peace was to show trust and openness. He walked over to Captain Morrison, with a datapad in his hand. "Captain," he said quietly, "maybe I can help ease the tension. I could send them basic information about human biology. You know, show them we are just regular people, not monsters." Jake looked at the datapad, which contained simple medical information about humans: height, weight, basic body structure, nothing secret or dangerous. "Do you think it will help?" "It might," Paul said. "Sometimes fear comes from not understanding. If they see we are just normal beings like them, maybe they will calm down." Jake nodded. "Do it. Send them the basic medical data." Paul sent the information to the Valdorian fleet, hoping it would help both species understand each other better. The data included simple facts about human biology, how humans healed from injuries, how they adapted to different environments, and how their bodies worked. But when the Valdorian scientists received the human medical data, they did not see it as a peace offering. Instead, they saw something that terrified them. "Admiral," the Valdorian chief scientist called out, his voice shaking, "you need to see this data about the humans." Admiral Krextar hurried over to the science station. "What is it?" "Sir, these humans are incredible. They can survive in almost any environment. They heal from wounds faster than most species we know. They can handle extreme pain and keep fighting. And look at this. They can adapt to new situations almost instantly." Krextar studied the data with growing alarm. According to the medical information, humans were tougher, more adaptable, and more dangerous than any warrior race the Valdorians had ever encountered. "There is more, sir," the scientist continued. "Their brains work very fast. They can learn new things quickly and solve problems under pressure. They are natural survivors." Commander Velthara looked at the data over the Admiral's shoulder. "These are not explorers, Admiral. These are perfect killing machines." The medical data that Dr. Stevens had sent as a gesture of friendship was being interpreted as proof that humans were a warrior race built for conquest. Every positive trait that made humans good explorers and survivors looked like a weapon to the frightened Valdorians. "Sir," the science officer added, "remember how fast their technology advanced? A species this adaptable with that kind of technology could conquer the entire galaxy in just a few generations." Admiral Krextar felt his blood turn cold. For 800 years, the Valdorian Empire had been the strongest force in the galaxy. They had built their power slowly and carefully, conquering weaker species one at a time. The idea of facing a race that could match or exceed their abilities was their worst nightmare. "Send this data to High Command immediately," he ordered, "and prepare for immediate attack. We cannot let these humans return to their home world with information about our territory." On the USS Defiance, Dr. Amy Foster was trying to understand the sudden change in alien communications. The Valdorians had gone from demanding surrender to complete radio silence in just a few minutes. "Captain," she said, "something has changed. They stopped talking to us completely." Chris Baker was watching his navigation screens when he noticed energy spikes from the alien ships. "Captain, they are powering up their weapons, all of them." Marcus Lane confirmed the reading on his tactical display. "He is right, sir. Those ships are about to attack." Jake Morrison felt a sinking feeling in his stomach. "What did we do wrong? We sent them peaceful medical information. Maybe they do not understand what we sent them," Dr. Amy Foster suggested. But before anyone could figure out what had gone wrong, the first Valdorian ship opened fire. A bright beam of energy shot across space and struck the USS Defiance's shield. "Array! We are under attack!" Karen Wells shouted from her tactical station. "Shields down to 80%! The bridge shook as more alien weapons struck the human ship. Jake held onto his captain's chair as sparks flew from damaged control panels. "Why are they shooting at us?" Ben Rodriguez called out from engineering. "We were trying to be friendly." "It does not matter now," Marcus Lane said grimly. "Captain, we need to fight back or they will destroy us." Jake Morrison had trained for many different scenarios, but he had never imagined that first contact would turn into a battle so quickly. He looked around at his crew, good people who had come out here to explore and learn, not to fight wars. "Captain," Lisa Carter shouted, "the communications array has been damaged. We cannot send messages anymore." Another volley of alien weapons struck the ship, and this time the lights flickered as power systems were hit. Jake realized that the Valdorians were not trying to disable his ship. They were trying to destroy it completely. "Tony," he called, "out to Lieutenant Tony Garcia at the weapons station. Return fire. Target their weapon systems only. I do not want to kill anyone if we can help it." Tony Garcia was a young officer who had hoped never to fire weapons in anger, but as he watched the alien ships preparing for another attack, he knew he had no choice. He targeted the lead Valdorian vessel and fired a single burst from the USS Defiance's main cannon. The human weapon was powered by a fusion reactor and designed to penetrate the strongest known armor. When it hit the Valdorian ship, the result was devastating. The alien vessel simply disappeared in a ball of bright light. On Admiral Krextar's command ship, the crew watched in horror as one of their most powerful warships was destroyed by a single shot from the human vessel. "Impossible," Commander Velthara whispered. "That was our newest battlecruiser. It had the strongest shields in the fleet." The other Valdorian ships stopped firing and pulled back, suddenly unsure of what they were facing. They had expected to quickly destroy a small exploration vessel. Instead, they had lost a major warship to what appeared to be a casual return shot. "Sir," the science officer reported with a trembling voice, "the energy output from that single human weapon was equal to our main battle cannon, but their ship is only 1/3 the size of ours." Admiral Krextar stared at the empty space where his warship had been. In 800 years of conquest, the Valdorian Empire had never faced weapons like this. The humans had technology that made Valdorian ships look like ancient toys. "Send an emergency message to High Command," he ordered. "Tell them we need the entire fleet. Tell them we have found a species that can destroy us." On the USS Defiance, the crew was shocked by the power of their own weapons. Tony Garcia stared at his controls with wide eyes. "Captain," he said quietly, "I only fired at minimum power. I was trying not to hurt them." Jake Morrison realized that humanity's first battle with an alien species had just revealed how dangerous human technology really was. The Valdorians had started the fight, but now they knew that humans could hit back much harder than expected. "Try to signal them again," he told Lisa Carter. "Tell them we do not want to fight. Tell them it was self-defense." But the communication array was still damaged and the message never got through. Instead, the news of the battle spread quickly through the Valdorian Empire. Within hours, every alien species in the galaxy would know that a single human ship had destroyed a Valdorian battlecruiser with one shot. The misunderstanding that had started with medical data was now a galactic incident that would change everything. The news traveled through the Valdorian Empire faster than any ship could fly. Within 6 hours, every major world knew that a single human vessel had destroyed one of their most powerful warships. The story grew with each telling until some reports claimed the humans had vaporized half the Valdorian fleet. On the industrial world of Nexus Prime, a group of alien workers stopped their machines to listen to the emergency broadcast. These were Corellians, a peaceful species that had been conquered by the Valdorians 300 years ago. They had never forgotten their freedom, and now they heard something that gave them hope. "Did you hear that?" whispered Zentar, a factory supervisor. "The humans destroyed a Valdorian battlecruiser with one shot." His friend Mordak looked around nervously. "Keep your voice down. If the overseers hear you talking about this, we will all be punished." But across the galaxy, similar conversations were happening on dozens of worlds. Species that had been under Valdorian rule for centuries suddenly saw a glimmer of hope. Maybe the Empire was not as strong as everyone thought. On the USS Defiance, Captain Jake Morrison was trying to understand what had just happened. The remaining Valdorian ships had pulled back but were still surrounding his vessel. His crew was working to repair the damage from the alien attack. "How bad is it, Ben?" he asked the chief engineer. Ben Rodriguez wiped sweat from his forehead as he checked his repair reports. "The communication array is damaged but fixable. We lost some shield generators, but the main systems are okay. We can fight if we have to. I hope we do not have to, Jake said. He still could not understand why the aliens had attacked them. The humans had done everything they could to show peaceful intentions. Dr. Rachel Stone, the chief science officer, had been analyzing the wreckage of the destroyed Valdorian ship. What she found surprised her. Captain, their technology is much older than ours. Their weapons and shields are hundreds of years behind what we have. How is that possible? Jake asked. They control this whole region of space. I think they have been in power for so long that they stopped trying to improve, Rachel explained. When you rule everything, you do not need to innovate. Marcus Lane was studying the tactical situation when something strange happened. His communication board lit up with incoming signals from all directions. Captain, he said, I am getting messages from other ships in the area. They are not Valdorian vessels. Mike Torres, the communication specialist, had been working to repair the damaged systems. I can clean up some of these signals, sir. Let me see what they are saying. After a few minutes of work, Mike managed to decode several of the messages. What he heard made everyone on the bridge stop what they were doing. Captain, Mike said excitedly, these are messages from other alien species. They are welcoming us and warning us about the Valdorians. What do you mean? Jake asked. Dr. Amy Foster took over the translation work. As she decoded more messages, a picture began to form of what this part of the galaxy was really like. Captain, it appears the Valdorian Empire is not as peaceful as they claim. These other species are saying that the Valdorians conquered them long ago and have been ruling them ever since. So they are not the legitimate government here? Jake asked. No, sir, they are conquerors, and many of these other species want their freedom back. This news changed everything for Jake Morrison. He had been trying to make peace with what he thought was the local government. Now he discovered that the Valdorians were actually oppressors, who had been ruling other species by force. Kevin Parker, the strategic advisor, had been quietly listening to all the communications. Captain, we have a problem. If we help these oppressed species, we could start a galactic war. But if we do nothing, we are allowing the oppression to continue. Linda Hayes, the executive officer, disagreed. Our mission is exploration, not liberation. We should repair our ship and return to Earth. Let the people back home decide what to do. But as more messages came in from the oppressed species, Jake began to understand the scope of the situation. The Valdorian Empire controlled hundreds of worlds and billions of beings. Many of these species had been slaves for centuries, working in mines and factories to support the Valdorian war machine. Captain, Dr. Amy Foster said as she translated another message. This one is from a species called the Altarians. They say they have been planning a rebellion for years, but they never had the weapons to fight the Valdorian fleet. Now they are asking if we will help them. Similar requests began coming in from dozens of other worlds. News of the human victory had spread, and oppressed species everywhere were begging for assistance. Meanwhile, on the Valdorian homeworld, Emperor Zarthul was meeting with his military advisors in an emergency session. The Emperor was ancient even by Valdorian standards, and he had ruled the Empire for over 200 years. How many ships do these humans have? He demanded. We do not know, Your Majesty. Admiral Krextar replied via subspace communication. They claim to have only a few vessels, but that could be a lie. One ship destroyed our battlecruiser, the Emperor said angrily. If they have 100 ships like that, they could destroy our entire fleet. General Vexhan, the Empire's top sea military strategist, studied the tactical reports. Your Majesty, I recommend we mobilize the core fleet immediately. 500 of our best warships. We must destroy this human threat before it can bring reinforcements. The Emperor agreed, and within hours, the largest Valdorian battle fleet in centuries was preparing to launch. Ships from across the Empire were called back to defend the homeworlds, but the massive military buildup had an unexpected effect. As Valdorian ships were pulled away from occupied worlds to deal with the human threat, the oppressed species saw their chance. On Nexus Prime, Zentar and his fellow workers made a decision that would change their lives forever. The Valdorian Garrison has been reduced, he told the secret resistance meeting. Half their ships left this morning to join the fleet. Mordak nodded. This is our chance. We may never get another opportunity like this. Similar meetings were happening on worlds throughout the Empire. The news of human strength had given the oppressed species something they had not felt in centuries: hope. Back on the USS Defiance, Captain Morrison faced the hardest decision of his career. The communications were still coming in from dozens of species asking for help. Many of them were describing terrible conditions under Valdorian rule. Captain Janet Ross, the weapons officer, spoke up. I know this is not what we planned, but we cannot just ignore what is happening here. These people need help. Sam Brooks, the engineering chief, agreed. We have the technology to make a difference. Our weapons are clearly superior to theirs. But Alex Turner from the diplomatic corps was worried. If we get involved in this conflict, we could be starting a war that lasts for centuries. Earth is not ready for that kind of responsibility. Jake looked out at the stars, knowing that whatever he decided would affect not just his crew, but potentially the entire galaxy. The Valdorian Empire was clearly preparing for a major battle, and oppressed species everywhere were looking to humanity for leadership. The choice was no longer just about exploration or even survival. It was about what kind of galaxy humanity wanted to help create. 3 days later, the largest fleet in Valdorian history arrived in the Zephyr sector. 500 warships filled the space around the USS Defiance, their hulls gleaming in the starlight. Admiral Krextar had never seen so much firepower in one place. Emperor Zarthul himself commanded the fleet from his massive flagship, a ship so large it could carry 50 smaller vessels inside its bay. The Emperor had not left his home world in over a century, but the human threat was too dangerous to ignore. So this is the ship that has caused us so much trouble, the Emperor said as he looked at the USS Defiance on his main screen. The human vessel looked tiny compared to his fleet, but he had learned not to judge by size alone. Captain Jake Morrison stood on his bridge, surrounded by his crew. They had spent the last 3 days listening to messages from oppressed species across the galaxy. The stories they heard had convinced them all that the Valdorian Empire was built on slavery and fear. 500 ships, Chris Baker reported from his navigation station. They really want us dead. Captain, Dr. Amy Foster said, I am still getting messages from rebel groups. They are asking what we plan to do. Jake had made his decision during the long wait for the Valdorian fleet to arrive. He could not return to Earth knowing that billions of beings were suffering under Imperial rule. But he also knew that fighting 500 ships would be suicide. Lisa, he said to the communications officer, open a channel to all ships in the system. I want everyone to hear this. Channel open, sir. Jake took a deep breath and began to speak. His words would be heard not just by the Valdorian fleet, but by rebel groups hiding on dozens of worlds throughout the galaxy. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the USS Defiance, representing the people of Earth. We came to this sector in peace, seeking friendship and knowledge. Instead, we found an empire built on conquest and oppression. On the Valdorian flagship, Emperor Zarthul listened with growing anger. How dare these humans judge us? We brought order to the galaxy. But Jake continued his broadcast. We have learned about the history of this region. We know about the species that have been enslaved, the worlds that have been conquered, and the freedoms that have been stolen. This is not the order of peace. This is the order of tyrants. Alex Turner had helped Jake write the speech, and now he watched as it was translated into dozens of alien languages and broadcast across the galaxy. Captain, we are reaching every inhabited world in the Empire. Good, Jake said and continued speaking. To the oppressed peoples of the galaxy, we say this: you are not alone. Freedom is not a gift that rulers give to their subjects. Freedom is a right that belongs to every thinking being. On Nexus Prime, Zentar and thousands of other Corellian workers had stopped their machines to listen to the human captain's words. For the first time in 3 centuries, someone was speaking to them about freedom. Today, Jake's voice continued, the Valdorian Empire has brought its entire fleet to destroy one small ship. They are so afraid of the idea of freedom that they will use any force to stop it. But ideas cannot be destroyed by weapons. Emperor Zarthul had heard enough. "Destroy that ship immediately," he ordered. But before the Valdorian fleet could attack, something unexpected happened. Rebel ships began appearing throughout the system. They had been hiding in asteroid fields and behind moons, waiting for this moment. "Admiral," a Valdorian officer reported in panic, "we are detecting over 200 rebel vessels. They are surrounding us." The rebel ships were old and poorly armed compared to the Valdorian fleet, but there were many of them. More importantly, their crews were fighting for their freedom instead of following orders from an emperor. "This is Zentar of the Free Corellian Fleet," came a new voice over the communications. "We stand with the humans against the Empire." Similar messages came from Altarian ships, Nexian vessels, and dozens of other species. The oppressed peoples of the galaxy had finally found the courage to fight back. Janet Ross was amazed as she watched her tactical display fill with allied ships. "Captain, we are not alone anymore." But Jake knew that numbers alone would not win this battle. The Valdorian ships were still much more powerful than the rebel vessels. "Mike, can you patch me through to all the rebel ships?" "Yes, sir." "This is Captain Morrison to all rebel forces. We are going to share our tactical data with you. Our computers can help guide your weapons to the weak points in Valdorian ships." Sam Brooks and his engineering team had been working on this plan for days. "Captain, we can link our targeting system to theirs. It will make their old weapons much more effective." The data transfer began immediately. Human technology flowed to the rebel ships, giving them targeting information and tactical advantages they had never had before. Suddenly, the old rebel vessels could hit Valdorian ships where their armor was weakest. Emperor Zarthul watched in horror as his carefully planned battle began to fall apart. The rebel ships were fighting with a coordination and effectiveness they had never shown before. "How are they doing this?" "The humans are helping them, Your Majesty," Admiral Krextar reported. "Their computers are directing the rebel attacks." The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Valdorian ships that had ruled space for centuries found themselves outmatched by rebels using human tactical systems. Old freighters and mining ships became deadly opponents when they knew exactly where to aim, but the real victory was not won with weapons. As the battle raged, Jake Morrison continued his broadcast to the galaxy. "People of the Empire," he said, "you do not have to live in fear anymore. You do not have to work in factories and mines for the benefit of others. You have the right to choose your own leaders and live your own lives." On world after world, the Emperor's subjects heard these words and began to rise up. Valdorian governors found their palaces surrounded by angry crowds. Colonial administrators discovered that their orders were being ignored. The empire that had taken 800 years to build was crumbling in a matter of hours. Emperor Zarthul realized that he had lost more than a battle. He had lost his empire. "Order all ships to retreat," he commanded. "We will regroup and plan a counterattack." But many of his ship captains were no longer listening. Some had decided to surrender rather than continue fighting. Others simply turned their ships around and headed for home, unwilling to die for an empire that was clearly finished. When the shooting stopped, Captain Morrison found himself in command of the largest fleet in galactic history. Ships from dozens of species surrounded the USS Defiance, all looking to humanity for leadership. "Captain," Dr. Amy Foster said, "they are asking what happens next." Jake looked out at the stars, knowing that this was just the beginning. "Tell them we are going to build something new. Not an empire ruled by force, but a council where every species has a voice." Over the following months, representatives from across the galaxy gathered to create the Galactic Council of Free Worlds. Earth became a founding member, but not as a ruler. Instead, humanity served as the example of what could be achieved when people worked together for freedom rather than conquest. Sam Brooks led teams of human engineers to dozens of worlds, sharing Earth's technology freely with any species that wanted it. Alex Turner helped write the Galactic Charter that guaranteed rights and freedoms for all thinking beings. The Valdorian Empire was finished, But the Valdorians themselves were not destroyed. Many of them joined the new council, happy to be free from the burden of ruling others. Emperor Zarthul retired to a quiet world where he spent his remaining years writing memoirs about the mistakes of empire. Captain Jake Morrison continued to explore the galaxy, but now he did it as part of a community of free worlds. Humanity had found its place among the stars not as conquerors, but as the species that had reminded the galaxy what freedom meant. The USS Defiance became a symbol of hope throughout the galaxy, proof that sometimes one small ship and a brave crew could change the course of history. And in the end, that change came not from superior weapons or advanced technology, but from the simple idea that all beings deserve to be free.